Hello and welcome to Little Likac, and this is a special episode, as you might be able to tell, and it's an episode today all about ideas that you can use for advent calendar yarn. So whether we're talking about an advent calendar you've bought, an advent calendar you have made, done a swap with other people, or you've just got scraps of leftover yarn that you want to use up. This podcast is going to, or this episode of my podcast is going to be all about some ideas for what you could make with those mini skeins. I have got some examples of knitting patterns, crochet patterns, some are paid for, some are free. We've got garments, we've got throws, blankets, shawls, wraps, even a pair of socks. So if you're not sure what you're going to do yet with your advent calendar, or you'd just like a few ideas of things to do with scraps, scrappy projects, then this episode is for you. Come and join me. So my name is Amanda and I'm coming to you from Derby in the UK. I think I'm probably going to take this headband off in a minute. Not only does it look very silly, but it's a bit tight. But anyway, we'll keep it on for a little bit. Yeah, my name is Amanda. I live in Derby in the UK. I am a knitter and a little bit of a crocheter, and I have a podcast. So normally I talk about what I'm knitting, what I'm making, what I've finished making, what I'm planning on making, etc. But today is going to be all about possibilities of what I'm going to do with my advent calendars. I've got two this year. The first advent calendar I've got is my own, the Little Likac advent calendar, which is on the Nutcracker theme. It was available in two bases, and I went for the sparkle base, so I know that, well, obviously I know what the colours are going to be anyway, but I've gone for the sparkle base, so it's all going to be sparkly. And I am thinking I'm probably going to knit a wrap, a rectangular wrap for that, which I could potentially use to wrap around myself, or even as a kind of like a lap blanket. So that's my plan for that one, but I'm still narrowing down which wrap I'm going to knit. And then I have a second advent calendar which is being gifted to me by a friend that she has put together for me. I know it's on the Winnie the Pooh theme. I don't know anything about the colours or how the colours are going to work or anything like that. So that one I'm probably going to wait till I've opened it all up before I decide what I'm going to do with it. But at least I can be thinking about the different options as I'm opening it up. So it's going to be a bit different today. I have got my phone with me because I've got the information about each pattern on my phone, but I'm going to be putting up pictures. Either I'll put the pictures up here or put pictures up whole screen while I'm talking about them. So the reason I'm going to be looking on my phone is because I've put all the ideas together as one bundle on Ravelry, and we have a Ravelry group, the Little Likac podcast Ravelry group, and so I will link that below. If you can't use Ravelry, then don't click on the link. I'm just trying to think, I'm not quite sure how else to put together, but I will put information about each pattern. The name of each pattern will be coming up and things like that as well anyway. But if you want to get direct links to the Ravelry page for it, if you click on the bundle or click on the link to Ravelry bundle, you'll be able to go from there. Right, I'm going to take this off. My nose is looking really shiny. Should have put some foundation on. Never mind. Whatever. It is what it is. Look a bit like Rudolph today with the red nose. So let us start with, also got information written in my book. We're going to start with garments. So I have never made a scrappy project garment that I can think of. Something that you know, like a jumper or anything like that. But there are a few garments available. And the first one I'm going to talk about is the Sand Art Cardigan. And the Sand Art Cardigan is by the Autumn Acorn, and it is a knitted project, and you can see that actually the scrappy part of it, the part that you use your mini skeins, is are the sleeves. And this is done by, she recommends making it a magic knot ball. And there's lots of tutorials on YouTube for making magic knot balls. But a magic knot ball is basically where you tie together all your scraps that you're going to use. And there's a special technique you can use to make that knot really strong. And then you can just keep knitting, you don't have to weave in any ends. I have used magic knot and I haven't had any problem with it. I just don't know how comfortable or confident I'd feel about doing it on a garment. But anyway, so this pattern is available from 28-inch chest up to 62-inch chest, so extra small up to 5x, so pretty size inclusive, I would say. And you hold it as well, you hold your fingering weight yarn with a lace weight, something like Surrey alpaca or mohair, to get that soft fluffy look. So that is the first one. It is $5, so that's one of the cheaper patterns actually. Some of these patterns are quite a lot more expensive than that, so it's $5 or £4.39, depending on the exchange rate, and as I say, that's available on Ravelry. The second garment we're going to look at is the Radvent cardigan. Now Radvent is something that is organised by Ambah O'Brien every year, the designer Ambah O'Brien. She does kind of Radvent, what's the word? Radvent knit-alongs and things like that. And Radvent is just really kind of Advent based patterns that she has designed. So this is a cardigan that you knit from cuff along the sleeve and then to the middle of the cardigan, and then you do the same thing on the other, going the other side and join them together in the middle. I'm guessing you graft the stitches together. You probably keep the stitches live in Kitchener or graft the stitches. That would be my guess. So it is a DK. I'm just looking, the gauge of it is 22 stitches, which is what I would normally call a DK gauge, but she has knitted it in fingering weight. So I was just looking to see if there's anything. You can get 25% off this if you buy it up to the end of December. I think all of the Ambah O'Brien ones, anything that she classes as an Advent or a Radvent pattern, you can get 25% off all the way through December. So it would be $8 usually to buy, or £7, and I say you can get 25% off if you buy it on Ravelry to the end of December. Sizes, it goes from 29-inch right up to 66-inch, so again very size inclusive, and she recommends fingering weight yarn. You can, I'm just looking, yeah, doing it fingering weight, but you are using 4mm needles, so, and she says a gauge 22 stitches, so I don't know whether you get 22 stitches on 4mm needles with 4-ply maybe, so it's quite a loose gauge anyway for 4-ply weight. Be really good for a fade set or gradient. It would work really, really well, wouldn't it? Okay, the third garment we're going to talk about is another knitted one. This is the Sea Glass Sweater by Wool and Pine. So Wool and Pine, quite a big designer now. For me, I first heard of Wool and Pine through the Summer Sorrel Tee, which I knitted, must have been 2021, must have been last summer. So Sea Glass was one that they released last year, probably about this time last year. Very, very popular. Brilliant for stash busting, brilliant for using up lots of scraps. You can see it's very colourful the way they've done it, with loads and loads of different colours. Again, I think they suggested using magic knot, and it's 1 by 1 colour work on every row as far as I can tell. Do take a look on Ravelry if you can, because there's over 500 projects, so you can see where some people have done it just in 2 colours, where some people have done it using one colour, like some like cream or another neutral colour, and then put lots of other colours in with it. So there's lots of variations to give you some inspiration. And that one is $9.50 or £8.35, so it is definitely up in the more expensive territory. But what I would say is I can see if you order 3 or more designs from Wool and Pine, you get 20% discount. And also I would say their patterns are incredibly detailed, well written, well tested, and there's lots of support if you have any problems. So yes, it's an expensive pattern, but you would get quite a lot for your money. Okay, the fourth garment we're going to look at is a crochet garment, and it's also in double knit. It's called Geometry Kaleidoscope Jacket, And this popped up when I was looking for other patterns for Advent. This actually came up on an advert, and it is available on Ravelry but also definitely on Etsy. And when I made a note of it, which was last weekend, it was actually reduced on Etsy. It was £4.39 on Etsy, or it was £5.22 on Ravelry. So I don't know if that sale is still running on Etsy or not. It is the Geometry Kaleidoscope jacket by TS Crochet Design. There's only one project on Ravelry at the moment, but if you like crochet granny squares, I mean obviously here they've done it in very bright colours, but if you've got a DK Advent this would probably work quite well for you. There's limited information. For example, it doesn't say how much yarn you need, so there's limited information, so I couldn't say for certain that you would be able to knit it all in one Advent. I couldn't tell you that, I'm afraid. I think there's only one size, which is small/medium, so it's not a size inclusive, but if you were a clever crocheter or experienced, you might be able to work out how you could potentially make it bigger. So that one, I'm afraid, isn't a size inclusive. It's not as detailed. There you go, you kind of get what you pay for a bit there, don't you? It is cheaper, but you've definitely not got as much variation or information on the pattern, I'm afraid. It was very new. It's only just been released, literally last week, I think, so hopefully there'll be more information on it. Maybe one to put in your favourites or to be watching it to see if other people do it. And then another crochet one, and I should have done this straight after the sea glass. Wool and Pine have also got a crochet version of the sea glass. It is described as a sea glass tee rather than full sleeves, but I am sure you could, if you're an experienced crocheter, you would probably be able to work out how to do longer sleeves. It is sizes 32 inch right up to 68 inch, so very size inclusive. It's suggesting that it takes less yarn than the knitted version, but that'll be because it's short sleeve, so I would just check that carefully, the amount of yarn it says it needs, because if you wanted to do it full sleeves, then obviously it's going to be more than that. So yeah, those are the garments that I have got as suggestions for you, or possibilities. Now we're going to move on to some blankets and throws. Some of these are ones that I've done myself. So firstly I'm going to show you a couple that are definitely you can complete with a full Advent set. So this is one, oh, excuse me. So this is one that I have knitted myself, and it's another one by Ambah O'Brien. So again, you can get the discount if you buy this pattern before the end of the year. So this is made up of 24 squares. So each square you use one of your Advent minis. It's designed for 4-ply, and it is designed for 20-gram mini skeins, because if I remember rightly, each square does take about 18 grams, 17, 18 grams, if I remember. Definitely. You need bigger mini skeins to do this, to do it at full size. Of course, if you had got smaller minis, if you'd got 10-gram minis, you could make the squares smaller, and then you would need more of them to make a blanket this size. So I actually made this in 2021. When I first started doing the podcast, actually I was making this, and I was doing it as a memory blanket through that year, making 2 squares per month, and I was using each time leftovers from projects that I was making. So a pair of socks, pair of fingerless mittens. I used that in my V-back tee. So it's a lovely blanket, because for me it's a really nice memory blanket. So that's another idea that you could use for this. And then use a contrasting yarn to join them together. I crocheted them together and then did just a very simple crochet border, and I absolutely love it. It's a good size as well, because you knit this, I think, on 4mm needles, so it does give you quite a loose gauge, so you do get quite big squares out of those 20 grams. So that is another idea. You could aim to knit a square every day in December, although I will just warn you, I think these squares took me about 4 hours to knit each one. You knit them in the round on DP ends, and the first few rounds are really quite tricky, not gonna lie. And I found, especially the first few squares that I made when I was still getting used to it, I found getting started on these were quite tricky. Once I'd done 3 or 4 squares, I began to get the hang of it and get a bit quicker. And also for that reason, I would recommend using wooden needles rather than metal, because metal needles, the wool just slides off straight away and it will drive you. And you'll probably want 2 sizes as well of length, because shorter ones when you get started, but as you can see there's quite a lot of stitches by the end, so I'd recommend having a longer set of double pointed needles to move them onto as well. So a couple of tips there for you. So it's Ambah O'Brien again, and it is, how much is it? Or $7, but as I say, you can get a discount on that. And then another one that I have made, and this is probably my first proper sort of scrappy project. This one is by Helen Stewart. Now, so Ambah O'Brien does Radvent every year. Helen Stewart, also known as Curious Handmade, she does one called Knitvent every year, and she releases, I think it's usually about 4 or 5 patterns, and you can buy them as a bundle for that year, and then she releases them 1 pattern a week for about 4 weeks in November. And this was part of the 2019 collection, the Habitation Throw. The following year, I think usually in the January, she then releases the patterns separately. So if you only wanted to buy one of the patterns, you can buy those separately, which is how I got this. So this is the Habitation Throw. She recommends, I can't remember if she recommends using magic knot or not. But I did use a magic knot ball for this. But I must admit, and this wasn't from an advent calendar, this was just scraps that I had from my own stash, and then maybe I bought a couple of minis possibly as well. And it was really, before I was really into minis, it was possibly that really got me started on loving minis actually. So I made a magic knot ball and just knitted away on it, and it was good fun actually, really good fun. I did it in lockdown and it was really good mindless knitting. It is garter stitch, you can see they've got some eyelet rows, very simple, kind of corner to corner. You just got to remember to increase and then decrease as you get halfway through. And the good thing as well is with it, you can make it as big as you wanted. So basically once you're halfway through your yarn, you start decreasing again. So you can make it as big as you want. Talking of Helen Stewart and Knitvent, Knitvent 2022 collection includes, she always includes an advent pattern of some sort. So I would say check her out anyway. I've got a few of her advent ones in today's podcast, but you know, check her out if you're interested in her advent collections. So the anthology throw that she's done this year is a massive, great big circular one, and this is part of the Knitvent 2022. So at the moment it's only available as part of that bundle, which is £18. If you wanted to buy that pattern separately, you're going to have to wait till after Christmas, when at some point she will release them separately. It's a big circular throw. I do know somebody who's knitted it this year. I've seen a few on Instagram. They look beautiful, absolutely beautiful. All collection this year is for mini skeins, so do have a look at her full 2022 collection. So I'm just looking to see if there's any more information. I mean, she has described it as an anthology throw, as a throw, but you know, it could be, you could fold that in half and use it as a shawl or a wrap. There are already over 500 projects on Ravelry in some beautiful colourways and ideas, so do take a look. That would look amazing in a fade. It would look just as good in like a fade or a gradient, or also just random. So yeah, that's a really, really beautiful throw and design. So those are patterns for throws or blankets where you could make a complete blanket from an advent set. And then I've got here, what I've also got now are some ideas for patterns that you could use, either then with your leftovers from your Advent. So let's say you got 20 gram skeins, mini skeins, and your pattern uses 15 grams or 12 grams. And so you've got leftovers even of those mini skeins. Well, this is where some of these blankets come in, and I've got 3 of these blankets on the go. So if you're a regular viewer of the podcast, you'll have seen these before. So the first one, crochet one I'm going to show you, is the granny stripe blanket. This pattern is free and it's from Attic 24, or Lucy on Attic 24. So her website has quite a lot of different crochet blanket ideas, but the granny stripe one is really, really simple. I'm doing it in fingering weight. I do 1 row in a single colour. Some people do 2 rows, some people use a magic knot ball. Again, I do 1 row, which usually takes about 5 grams. So if I've got a 10 gram mini, obviously I can get 2 rows out of it, etc. So again, if you go onto Ravelry, you will see thousands of projects using this and giving you different information on, of course you can do this in DK, you can do it in DK, you can do it in 4-ply, you can do it in any weight yarn, you just use a different size crochet hook. And then there are different people giving you suggestions of how big you want to make it, how many stitches to make your chain at the beginning. I honestly can't remember what mine was. Hopefully I've put that information in my project page. So that is a really good one for, actually, I mean, you could of course use it for full mini skeins, but of course, if, like I say, if you've used the mini skeins on other projects and then you've got leftovers, if it's 5 grams, well, depending on the width of your blanket, the width of my blanket, 5 grams does 1 row. And then when I've got even smaller weight leftovers, I start crocheting these teeny tiny little squares, and this is for the Battenberg blanket by Sandra from Cherryheart podcast and vlog, or blog. And so I make loads of these diddy little blanket squares, and then you crochet them together. And you can see I'm crocheting mine, I'm using a cream undyed yarn for my alternating squares. So this is the Battenberg blanket, incredibly popular. This is a long-term project. I started it in the spring. As you can see, I've got loads and loads of squares made, and I've obviously started putting some of those squares together. So really love this project. But it's definitely going to be a long-term project. I see this being like a 5-year project maybe. But the pattern is free. So both those patterns are crochet, and both those patterns are free. And another one for using up scraps would be the Triangulum. This one is knitted, and this one is by Ellie Jones from Craft House Magic, and it's about £4.25 to buy. Buy it on Ravelry, and she's got her own website, so I'm assuming you can buy it directly from her own website as well, Craft House Magic. So this is made up of triangles that you knit on double pointed needles, or on, you could do it on a circular, I believe. She's got instructions for both 4-ply weight and also DK weight. I'm doing mine in rainbow colours, and each triangle only takes about 3 or 4 grams. So again, I'm using bright rainbow colours for this. But again, then if I've got some left over, not enough to do a triangle, if it's enough to do a square on the Battenberg blanket, it goes on to that. So I'm trying to get every last bit of my scraps used. So that one is a paid for pattern, but again there are quite a few options of how to make it a different shape, how to do different borders on it and things like that. So as you can tell, most of those are ones that I've already done or I'm working on. Then we're going to shawls and wraps. Some are called shawls, some are called wraps, and I've got about 10 of these, and as I say, I am likely to do one of these with my Nutcracker Advent set. Don't know what I'm going to do with the Winnie the Pooh one yet, but I'm likely to do one of these with my Nutcracker set. We just have a little bit of my coffee. Okay, so firstly we have the Ardour shawl, which is well, if you make it the biggest size, it's a very, very big wrap. But she has got options. There's the option of a large shawl, a small shawl, or a scarf. It is in eyelet moss stitch and garter stitch, I believe, and she's done it in fingering weight yarn. I guess if you did the smaller size but in a DK, it's going to come up bigger. So it's by Refracted Light Knits. I'm just looking to see if there's any other name. No, Refracted Light Knits. There's a number of these, not a huge number, but there are a number of these on Ravelry already. So do take a look. Trying to see, I can't really see. Yes, so she has used the large shawl, used a full 23 mini skeins advent calendar and a full skein of an undyed yarn that she used. So that's, you would need your full advent calendar and a full skein of a contrast colour for that one. It's not free, it's a paid for pattern. It's $7.50 US or £6.48 currently. The next one is a crochet shawl in DK, and it's, although it's not free, it is very, very reasonably priced. It's the Just Feel Festive shawl, and it is just $1 or 86p in UK money. So it's a crochet kind of granny stripes, but on the bias. So your stripes are diagonal. I think you just have to be, it says it's quite easy to work on. You just perhaps have to just pay attention at the end of each row because you're going on the diagonal. Just looking to see if it tells you. So she uses 2 fingering weight yarns held together to give DK weight. So obviously you could do it in DK as well. So that makes a pretty big crochet shawl / wrap. Then we have the Find Your Fade, which is an Andrea Mowry shawl, and I have to say it is on my short list of one that I've got a lot on my short list still. So Find Your Fade, Andrea Mowry is a very, very famous, successful designer, and you will see there are thousands, literally 11,500 projects for this shawl. So if you want inspiration, just search the hashtag Find Your Fade on Instagram or go onto Ravelry and go to the project pages, because there are literally thousands of them. It would be beautiful as a fade, as a gradient, one colour, whatever you want to do. So yeah, it uses fingering weight or 4-ply, and I think a lot of people have used their Advent mini set for that particular shawl. Moving on, we have the Poleston scarf, which I really like this. The pictures on Ravelry of the original project, just beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So it's designed by Amy Loudon, who did the Whitmore jumper and cardigan, which I know quite a lot of people know of. Poleston is a new one. I think it was only released, oh no, it was released a year ago actually, so I'm surprised there aren't more projects. It's £5 to buy the pattern. It's absolutely beautiful, and there are quite a few different ways of constructing this. So there's quite a few options, using Suri alpaca lace held double with it, using Suri alpaca lace single, and sort of like doing a strip of the 4-ply, a strip of the Suri alpaca. So there are different options for different types to get a different type of finish with it. Really pretty. It's kind of also on my short list, but my short list isn't very short. Then we have a crochet one by Sandra from Cherryheart. So that's the same designer who had done the Battenberg blanket. She's done one called Baubles and Berries. This is really pretty. It is a crochet wrap, little baubles on it as well. So really pretty. This one won't be one because I'm pretty sure I'm going to do knitted rather than a crochet one. She's used, it is designed to use for Advent. It is £5 at the moment. However, there is an offer, £1.50 off at the moment. No coupon needed on Ravelry. That offer ends on January the 9th, so it's only £3.50. So now I'm thinking I might buy it now anyway, so that I've got that pattern while it's discounted. So it's only £3.50 at the moment, which is a really good price. She's got a podcast as well, Sandra, from Cherryheart. She actually lives relatively near to me, so I'm hoping one day I might bump into her at a yarn show or something like that. Love to see her and say hello to her. We also have the Babbling Brook wrap. This is really pretty. The only thing with this one I would say is that it uses a contrast yarn in between each colour, so could be good once you've opened your Advent, and then you could decide, you know, once you've opened the whole thing, decide on a contrast colour to go with them all. This is a new design, only came out this year. It's £4.70 currently. I was just looking to see. Don't think there's any kind of discount or anything at the moment. You can do it in 4-ply or DK. She gives the information for both. It is designed by Blue Fern Yarns, and I think if you have her Advent set this year, I think this is the pattern that you get for free with it, I think. So yeah, really pretty. Babbling Brook wrap is definitely one I would be considering, but as I say, not one that I think I would do while I was going. I think it would be one that once I'd got all my minis, I would then decide what contrast colour to use. Then we've got a couple by Ambah O'Brien. So one is called the Wrap It Real Good, and this is a very strong contender for me to do this year for my Likac calendar, and for me to do it as I go along, because you don't have a contrast yarn to use in between. It's got kind of got a ripple effect. It looks like there's enough to do detail in it that's going to make it interesting, but not too tricky, and it would be amazing if I could keep working on it each day. It is part of the 25% off. It's $7 to buy, about £6, but it has got 25% off, so it's only going to be about £4.50 if I do buy this one. Very tempted. Ambah always runs big knit-alongs as well in December for anybody doing any of her Advent patterns, so that is one of my top choices for this one. Wrap It Real Good. She also has the Lamina Cowl and Wrap, also by Ambah O'Brien. This is one though where you do use the contrast in between. Same price, $7. So that one, you need the contrast yarn in between. Do like that one. It perhaps doesn't have as much interest to it as the Wrap It Real Good does. There's also the Solstice Wrap by Ambah O'Brien. This is another one which doesn't have the contrast yarn. As I said before, do check out Ambah O'Brien. She has so many different kinds of wraps that you could do. And then we have the Dust to Snow wrap is huge. I think that looks like it uses a contrast yarn as well. So it is inspired by the Robert Frost poem Dust of Snow. It uses 24 mini skeins, 100 grams of mohair. You could use Suri alpaca, so that one does use a lace weight combined with it. So my 25 might become 26, 27, maybe 30. We have the Skyline wrap. I love this. This is by Helen Stewart, but definitely one that I think I would do though if I knew all the colours were going to be kind of similar colours on the same sort of palette, or one where I had got my minis in front of me, because for me this one works really well, but all about the colour combinations. So this is from the Knit Event 2021, so I have got this pattern in my library, but I definitely would want to work out my colour combinations. So not one that I would knit a day at a time as I opened them, definitely one that I would sit and calculate. Okay, then we move on to another couple of cowls. Another one by Helen Stewart, Land of Sweets, which is of course inspired by the Nutcracker. So I think though that this one, yeah, you only need 8 grams of each of 24 colourways, so this is good for if you've got a 10 gram advent rather than 20. So Land of Sweets, she did, I think that was from 2017. I think all of the 2017 collection was inspired by the Nutcracker actually. So is that all of my cowls? Yeah. Oh no, there's the Litmus Cowl as well by Stranded Dye Works, which is a free pattern by Jude from Stranded Dye Works, although Jude was known as Amy Florence at that point, and so it is under that name rather than Jude. So Stranded Dye Works, the Litmus Cowl, it is a free knit pattern, and it is a very, very popular pattern. Uses 24 5-gram minis, I think, and one contrasting. I've also got a sock pattern to show you, and I did knit these socks, and they are called the Advent Socks 2019. I can only find one of them, so I really don't know where the other one is. I'm wondering if the other one I used it to show something maybe in Christmas in July. I just don't know where it is. There's only one in my sock drawer, which worries me. So this pattern, I actually knitted this. I've knitted both of, I promise you I've knitted both. I knitted the pair of them over 12 days. So each sock has got 12 stripes. But then obviously you've got to do your heels, toes and cuffs. The heel is an afterthought heel. First time I did an afterthought heel, don't particularly like it, don't like how it sits on my foot. What I did do as well with this was absolutely, I waited till I'd got all my colours. This was made with scraps. Some of these were from an Advent swap, and some were just scraps that I had got. And I absolutely quite carefully worked out which colours I wanted to use. But what I did was I started it on Christmas Eve, I think, or Christmas Day. I think I did the cuff perhaps on Christmas Eve. And then I worked on them. I did the 2 socks at the same time, not on magic loop. I had 2 sets of DPNs going, and I did the cuff on both socks. Then I did this stripe on both socks on day 1, this stripe on both socks on day 2. It is a free pattern. It is a free pattern on Ravelry. I did really enjoy it, and I did complete it in the 12 days because I was off work. So I completed the 2 socks. I just wish I could find the other one. So I love them. They are lovely slouchy socks for wearing around the house, but the afterthought heel kind of, I find a bit too loose on my heel. But yeah, really good for colour work practice. I mean, I've got a reasonable amount of stretch in them, so I feel like I did quite a good job with them. Okay, that is it. That is the entire selection of Advent patterns that I wanted to share with you. Oh my goodness me. Before I go, I'm not going to do a full podcast this afternoon showing you all my works in progress. I'm going to do that next week. I'm not going to do Vlogmas, but I am going to try to record a podcast of some sort every weekend between now and Christmas. So there will be something coming from me. So next week will probably just be a standard podcast, and I will show you my works in progress, what I've bought, what I've been making, and my first few days progress on one of those Advent wraps. I've got quite a lot of yarn that I have acquired over the last few weeks. Some I have been gifted, some I have bought, some I have stolen. No, I haven't stolen any, but kind of begged, borrowed and stolen. No, so yeah, some gifted, some swapped, some bought. So I've got a lot to show you, but I'll show you those next week. What I will just quickly do though is, if you don't mind, I am just going to do a quick update on some of the stuff that's gone into the shop. So if you're not interested in what's gone into the shop, then thank you for watching, and I hope you've enjoyed this episode and found some inspiration. If you're interested in what's gone into the shop recently, we have this one called Drummer Hodge, which is so hard to describe the colours. Kind of got very pale khaki brown and yellows and greens. I've called it Drummer Hodge, which is a poem written by Thomas Hardy about a drummer in the Boer War in South Africa, because the colours kind of reminded me of that sort of slightly desert khaki sort of colours. So that's Drummer Hodge, and that's on my soft sock base. Then we have Stormy Skies, which has always been a popular choice. Every time I dye this up, it usually sells very, very quickly. Also on the soft sock, my soft sock base is 75 merino, 25 nylon. So there is some soft sock in the shop. Stormy Skies, a soft sock in the shop. This one is also on the soft sock base. This is Northern Lights. I absolutely love this. So we've got pinks and lilac, and I think there's some blue in here, and caramel and almost rose gold. So it's really, really pretty. It's called Northern Lights. I think there's 4 skeins of that. That's the soft sock. We also have, this was the yarn that you saw me dye up on the blog during Vlogtober. There we go. During Vlogtober I dyed this, and then I wasn't happy with it. I'd speckled it, but then I said I wasn't happy with the speckling, so I re-speckled it. So there are 2 skeins of this. It's on a very, very pale sort of pinky salmon base, and then you've got speckles of blue and lilac and pink, and it is on my luxury sock base, which is 85% merino, 15% nylon. It is so, so soft. I have called this one Snow Lights. I think it would make a beautiful shawl, absolutely beautiful. Potentially could make a really nice contrasting colour to go with a mini, Advent mini. Could potentially do that as well. Really, really pretty. There's only 2 skeins of that. We have the Christmas fairy lights on the Christmas tree. So this is also on the luxury 85-25. So we've got a green base, and then we've got splashes of red, turquoise, blue, purple. So vintage sort of fairy lights feel to it. So fairy lights on the Christmas tree on the luxury sock. There are maybe about 3 skeins of that in the shop. And the last one is this beautiful pink. It's kind of a bit like a raspberry pink, and this one's called The Ruined Maid, which is another Thomas Hardy poem actually. So it's called The Ruined Maid, and it's kind of a raspberry pink. It's really pretty. I'm not sure how many skeins there are of that, maybe about 3 in the shop I think. So, and the Mystery Sock Club for November, the yarn was, or the fairy story was The Gingerbread Man, or The Gingerbread Boy, and it came with this cute little stitch marker. This is not available anymore, so it came with the gingerbread, mini skein, and then your gingerbread with icing, 100 gram skein. So there is only the December one to go for the Fairy Tale Mystery Sock Club. and you need to have ordered by the end of tomorrow, the end of the 28th of November, to be able to get the December club. And then it moves to the new club, which will be being launched at the end of the year, ready for next year, for 2023. I think that's the first time I've said 2023. So thank you if you stuck around to see the updates. Thank you if you've bought or ordered anything in the last few weeks. I really, really appreciate it. So those are kind of the latest yarns that have gone up for sale. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for watching. And yeah, next week, back to normal with a podcast showing you all the makes. Thanks for watching. Bye.